So, welcome to another episode of Accessibility Insights. I'm Eugene Woo, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Venngage. Venngage is an accessible design tool. We're an alternative to Canva or Adobe that is accessible and will allow you to export accessible files like PDFs. Okay, today we're joined by Hector Osborne Rodriguez. Hector has over 2 decades of software development and consulting, currently works for Accenture, and has been focused on e-commerce accessibility. So it's great to have you on the podcast, and looking forward to learning about you and all the work that you've done.
Awesome. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Ian. This is great. Yeah, fantastic to be
Yeah.
here.
Cool. So let's get started from the beginning. Tell us how did you get involved in digital accessibility? What was the spark and all that?
Yeah, so I will say the beginning is prior to my even introduction to digital. So I'm a computer engineer. Uh, I'm like 46. So I was born pre-digital era. My mother had a disability. So she lived with lupus. In her case, was like she couldn't go outside, she couldn't take sun, it will burn her skin, kind of like Dracula kind of thing. It was really limiting of the experiences that we could have and the time of day that we can go and do stuff. So that was one of the experiences that I have. I also, my grandmother used to like raise a lot of people. One of the people that she raised was someone that was deaf mute, and he was a really close friend of mine. So we used to have a lot of interactions. Interesting because we neither of knew sign language, but apparently we were really good friends, and it really worked out really well. So that translated to when I studied computer engineering, I got introduced to the world of web and programming and doing this kind of stuff. But the web started when I was studying in university. So accessibility wasn't even a word. I was never taught in it. Like it was not even in part of my curriculum. Later in life, when I moved to Canada, I started seeing, accessibility, human rights,
Mhm.
and interacting with people with disabilities over here. It was fantastic, and it was an immediate call. Like to me, technology should be a tool to allow us to do better work, to help us
Agreed.
make life easier. But it shouldn't neglect certain people because I mean we want to do life easier for everyone. So when I learned about accessibility, it was just like, okay, I'm in. What do I need to learn? How do I need to learn this? Where should I go? Yeah,
Okay,
that would
cool.
have
Yeah, cool.
been 10 years ago, I think, 10, 11 years
Okay.
ago. So it's pretty cool. Yeah.
And tell us a bit about e-commerce. So I think this is a field that, it's pretty important, like both from obviously from a user point of view, like we
Hmm.
buy stuff online all the time. Like I would
Yeah.
say
No.
90% of my purchases are now online.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's also, I know, an area that has a lot of attention because retailers, do get in trouble. They do get sued all the time because of
Yeah.
not, because of accessibility issues.
Yeah. In the US, I'm in Canada. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. I'm in Canada, in Toronto, Canada. So suits here are not the same as we have in the US. US
Right.
is more like driven by law in the you advocate for yourself, so lawsuits are more common. In Canada, it's different where like things will happen eventually someone will get sued. So the government is watching. But e-commerce in both areas are really critical because like as you mentioned, and even post-pandemic, world changed a lot a couple of years ago. Majority of our purchases are online. Like Amazon, when it
Right.
started, it was only books. Today, you can buy whatever you can imagine in there, right? So it allows you to purchase without having to go to stores. It has brought other issues with like brick and mortar or like physical spaces where they don't have the success as they used to.
Mhm.
Now, let's say e-commerce is taking the world. So digital medias, so we have Netflix, we have Spotify. So you consume videos, you consume movies, you consume electronics, you consume experiences online. So that means if we don't make sure that accessibility is embedded there, we're missing out on, from the business perspective, they're missing out on money. If you have certain disabilities that are accommodation needs, and they're not taking care about your company, then there's going to be someone else that will do it. Eventually, that business will go there. When we had the physical spaces, or people used to go to physical spaces, if your physical space was sufficient, people will go there. But if it was
Right.
not, then they will not even enter your door. That's kind of like in the digital world, that's what's happening today. So in e-commerce specifically, we had to differentiate like what kind of e-commerce. So you have like the goods and clothing kind of e-commerce, but on the other hand, you have like travel and history, travel and vacations and kind of thing, where they have
Mhm.
other things that are more needed, which make them easier to find or not easier to find. So displaying information correctly and having access to information digitally is fantastic
Right.
for those that can use it. And as I always say, those that can use it should be everyone.
And where do you think, for at least from your experience, where do you think is the one area that retailers kind of need to work on? I don't know. Is it, the checkout process? What are like the big
Mhm.
barriers to e-commerce
Yeah.
right now?
A typical one is the most complicated one, I will say, because the world is changing to multi-factor authentication. So that's the
Hmm.
first one. So you can go to a website, you can add to your cart, you get all the money or whatever, all the purchases there. When you're going to check out, there's the two paths. Do you want to log in or do you want to
Right.
continue as a guest? So there are benefits in both. So when you go as a login, you have your history there, you have your address already filled, your credit card information might be there.
Yep.
So if you feel that that company is keeping your data secure, you go through that process. But as soon as you start logging in today's world, we don't want to remember passwords because there are too many. They're complicated. So we
Right.
created this multi-factor authentication process, which is basically click here, you get an email. So then I'm sitting in my computer doing some browsing with my technology, with my things in my hand, and now you're asking me to go to my phone, get a code,
Right.
find somehow to navigate through that process is convoluted for certain experiences. I always think of myself like um, digital, like people with a low technology knowledge. Let's
Right.
say elderly, right? Like my grandmother. Like
Right.
if I send her an email to log in, she would like, nope, I broke the internet. I'm not gonna purchase. So you break that experience, right?
Right.
Uh,
Right.
or or even for us, we started to use like multiple applications to do login now. So you have like Google Authenticator or Okta for private
Right.
businesses. Like, you have so many of them that it's complicated to keep track of them. It's awesome to not have to remember a password, but that
Right.
process has become complicated. So that's one pain point that a lot of people talk about. How to log in. Like I'm a computer, I know my thing, just let me
Right.
go in. The second one in that same perspective is the CAPTCHA.
Right. Yeah.
Cap CAPTCHAs are evolving to be harder to navigate or work.
Yes.
We used to be like letters, and now
Right.
letters became blurry and super complicated. And it changed to number. Now you have things like you need to match
Yeah. It's challenges
um,
now.
rotation. You need to rotate an
Yep.
object,
Yep. Yep.
or like math challenge, or like count how
Right.
many cows are in this screen. Like I don't even know what you're asking me. So
Yep.
they're becoming harder for even for a human to
Yeah.
comprehend what you're asking me, right? So that's
Yeah.
another barrier, which is there. Yeah, it needs to happen.
So the first point you made, I think, those of us who shop online, like I'm very familiar with it.
Yeah,
Like if you use Shopify, like it remembers, your
yeah,
session, it cookies you, right? So you go to any other site that's on Shopify, you don't have to log in. When you
yeah,
pay, it just like automatically sends you a text message, and
yeah,
then you just,
yeah,
you put in the code, and then like the checkout. So in those cases, I think this is a very interesting thing. I think it was designed to make the checkout process smooth. It's like Apple Pay,
yeah,
right? Like where you
yeah,
just click,
yeah,
double click on that, and you can say, if you're on a Mac, an Apple device,
yeah,
Apple Pay is an example where it's very frictionless to
yeah,
check out. So I think the original intent was to make it more, less friction. But
yeah,
to your point, it's actually a lot more friction to some
yeah,
people.
yeah, yeah. And it is. I mean, it was well intended, but I always see it like there's always people with bad intentions in the world that are taking advantage of technology too, right? So we have the good people that are trying to use it for their day-to-day life, but you have the people that want to scam, that want to create viruses,
Right.
that want to do malwares. So to avoid this, I don't know how many percentage of the world does that, but to avoid that, you need to start putting roadblocks. And those roadblocks necessarily are there to stop certain experiences, but they block also people that actually want to use and make things easier for them. Like one example that I always use is in the filling of the checkout. So you need to check out, you need to do your full history, really, your name, your last name, address,
Right.
billing address. So if you have a different billing address, a different shipping address,
Hmm.
and then your credit card number, there could be almost 100 fields that you had to fill in. It's close to between like 40 to 100, depending on how much data they ask for. Remembering all of that is complicated, and even filling that data could be complicated for certain audiences. So when you have like autocomplete or memorize that, I know
Right.
that I only have to do it once. So if I
Right.
always purchase with you, I know you have my data, so I don't have to go with this process again. It's like going to the doctor and filling up a form the first time you go to a doctor. You
Right.
need to you
Right.
need to introduce yourself to them, right? Like you need to give them all your data, or like
Right.
your history, your medical record. So it's really hard to fill in those forms.
Yeah, and I know, I mean, I agree with you. Like filling in repetitive information is like one of the worst
Yeah,
things ever. Even putting my
yeah,
credit card in is
yeah.
cumbersome because there's like, whatever,
Mhm.
20, I don't know how many numbers, but a lot of numbers.
Yeah, yeah,
And then putting the address in and all of that. Um,
yeah.
so do you know, like, are there solutions now that are still a lot less friction, that doesn't require to fill in and that and also solves the authentication problem, the MFA problem, where
Yeah.
people may have a challenge using a different device to authenticate themselves as they log in. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, I mean, there's like the memory passwords software out there that
Okay.
remember your password. So basically they remember your password, and not only the password, but like your address and remember your credit card. So within one click, it allows you
Right.
to fill out forms. But again, it's not a browser or a specific website solution. You have the website, you put in a patch on top of it. So for some people, that patch works. For
Right.
others, they don't have access to that. They might have to do it themselves, right? Like it depends on whether you have access to this kind of information, or software. It
Right.
is, yeah, but I think the ones that I use more is like whatever allows me to autocomplete, the better.
Hmm.
Well,
Okay.
like let me
Okay.
autocomplete all the form, all the history. One good thing that is happening right now is like logging in with your social media login and password,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Like I mean, it helps. Like you can log in with
Yep.
Google, you can log in with Facebook, but like if you're scared of security and privacy, then that's not the right solution. So it
Right.
is you have to think about it carefully, but there are solutions that might work for you. Yeah. For me, like filling the forms for me is really helpful.
Okay. Yeah,
Mm.
100%. Definitely having something that
Mm.
pre-fills the form. I mean, I use a
Yeah.
password manager for stuff like that. It's
Yeah,
it's
I do.
it's fairly easy. Um,
Yeah.
on captchas, I know WCAG 2.2 has like a section. I don't think I don't remember specifically whether it talks about captcha or it's
Yeah.
actually about logins, but I think it addresses both of those. Are you familiar with the 2.2? It's fairly new, and I when I read it,
Yeah.
I wrote about it, so I'm a little bit fuzzy on the details. But I know in capture it has something that says like it should not be a cognitive test, so it shouldn't be
Yeah.
something where, like you said, even humans find it difficult to to
Yeah.
complete the task. And
Yeah.
so, yeah. So I
So
think
so
they're
catch
addressing it. Yeah. Yeah.
CAPTCHA was created to kind of like say that you're not a robot, right? Like that's the
Hmm.
intent with CAPTCHA. Like you don't
Right.
want a machine or automated or how do you call that? One of those like
The bots. Yeah. You don't want to.
robots or software that you
Yeah.
create to fit in, right? So
Hmm.
they want to avoid that. But in doing so, like sometimes you ask me if I'm human, I go like I doubt myself sometimes. Like am I human? I don't know what you're asking me.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
know WCAG 2.2 has something about it. I don't know it by
Hmm.
heart right now. And the other thing that we need to remember is that WCAG 2.2, like, I mean, how many people are adapting to WCAG 2.2?
I mean,
Like,
it's new, so I would say very few.
exactly. Yeah. So while we Right now, 2.1 is the one that is on the world. So 2.2 will come in a year, in 2 years
Right, right,
when they start adopting it. So we have that amount of time to be bothered by CAPTCHA.
right.
I know some of the CAPTCHAs are actually been doing they've been adding accessibility cookies.
Yeah,
If you demonstrate, I think there's some processes that you will say, hey, I don't want to go through CAPTCHAs. I'm a human. Just ask me once. And then
yeah,
that injects a cookie in your device. And then that way you skip this test.
right, right.
But again, it has to be in one specific device with one specific browser and then like kind of limits, but at least it helps.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, good point. I mean, I think they do. They definitely need to update. I actually recently went on a site that had like a. It wasn't the Google Capture. It wasn't reCAPTCHA. It was a
Yeah.
different company, and it was
Yeah.
very hard. It was the one that where
Mhm.
you had to pick the one that's different. Like it was a cognitive
Yeah.
test.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was very, very
Yeah.
difficult.
And
Yeah, I had to think for a while. I had to sit there, and it took me like a few minutes to complete the task. And I
yes.
was like, "This is
Yes.
the worst
This is the
capture
word.
ever."
Yep. And
I wish I
it's hard.
reported it now. I mean, now I forget. Yeah, I have to go and find that
Yeah.
site just to do it all over again.
Yeah, yeah. But
Um,
that's the one that I'm referring to. It's so
yeah,
complicated. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It had some cows on it, and it said like which
Yeah.
cow was not sitting down on the barnyard or something like that. It was so complicated.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Kind of let's switch gears a little bit. So you're in Accenture right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you share like the kinds of projects you kind of work on? Maybe not the
Yeah.
details, but kind of just share in
Yeah. Yeah.
general, what type of clients, what kind of projects, anything interesting, that we can learn from.
Yeah, of course. So Accenture, let's start with the history of what it is. So Accenture is a large corporation that work with like digital enterprises. We're kind of like an agency of record, but we do a lot of things. Within the things that we do, we build experiences for our clients. Now we are 700,000 people. So it's a
Okay.
global
Wow.
company.
Okay.
Yeah, it's huge. We have presence wherever you want to have presence of digital, we have someone there. We work with large companies mostly,
Okay.
like big corporations. But on the other side, us being so big, we also return to the community a lot. So there are certain jobs or works that we do with or ONGs to like kind of like Accenture puts money, like, hey, let's help certain ONGs. So you present the cases and we work with that. So we work with like large corporation, financial institutions,
Hmm.
but we also work with like smaller, like an ONG or ORG that needs some help. And we like
Right.
Accenture puts the money and we do that kind of work. Medium-sized company and a small company, sometimes we're too big for them because we're expensive, right? I mean, it's honesty. Like we're like a large corporation, we need cost of living. We have certain processes that are maybe too cumbersome for smaller companies, so we tend to work more towards the mid and large size
Okay.
corporations. I'm talking about it can be projects that are like a 3 month or 3 years. It depends on what is your need. Like we go for a strategy implementation. So maybe you need a strategy. So that means like let's redesign your experience. So we go for the physical side, the website, the digital experience. So we might take it on steps. Or you come to us with a specific need. Hey, I want to implement this solution in a kiosk. And then okay, let's do that.
Okay.
The
And yeah,
The
sorry,
great
go
the,
ahead.
the
Yeah.
great thing is yeah, the great thing is diversity, right? Like it being such a large company is really diverse. So we have diversity in like just people, like races, color, age, sizes, disabilities, non-disabilities, LGBTQ. So all of those, like we have so many people with so many experiences that when we bring solutions to the table, we always get a lot of information from multiple communities that give access to all, right? Like, are we represented properly? Are we doing the right job? So it's fairly interesting and really important for me to see that in our day-to-day work. It's really, I'm proud of it, if that makes sense.
Okay. And so what is your role? Like, do you get, are you overseeing the entire project or just the accessibility part of the project typically?
Oh, I think I just did. I just came out of accessibility conference in Toronto, the A11TO conference, and I
Yeah.
introduced myself. I'm an accessibility champion and fixer. So I have multiple roles. So I do front-end development is my real job description, but I also
Okay.
lead accessibility.
Okay.
So accessibility in Accenture is seen as part of the solution, but we also have like multiple streams, like security is part of the solution.
Okay.
Backend integration is part of the solution. So I stay the entire project with eyes in accessibility and the front end. So whatever application has an interface with a customer, I'm there. From the accessibility perspective, like looking at the new laws, what is coming, what is being introduced, how do you test, with people do you test? How do you make sure that everyone in the project knows what accessibility is and make sure that they care for it and they love it and they get out of there with passion about it? Yeah, so
Okay.
my role is diverse. So that's one role. That's the most common one. Another one that happens is someone is in an emergency crisis. Like, hey, we need to go live and we're not accessible.
Okay.
What would we, like,
Okay.
how can we fix this? And then those are like more like that. They're less, it's more palliative, and you always heard because it's too late. And like you're
Right.
involved with me today, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, why didn't you call me earlier, please?
Yeah, like trying to fix things at the end. I mean, I always say that, like,
Yeah.
if you leave it at the end, it's either going to be a lot more costly or it's going
Hmm.
to be well, a lot more costly and a lot more difficult, right? Rather
Yeah.
than trying
Yeah.
to address it at the
Yeah.
start.
Yeah.
Does Accenture have processes that ensure that you address accessibility up front, or is it kind of up to the
Yeah.
client whether they want to or not?
I've been in Accenture for the last 9 years. I'm going to 10. Next year, I will have a 10-year anniversary. So it have changed. When I started, it was more client demand. You ask me, we'll do
Okay.
it.
Okay.
Today, we are the opposite. We are making sure that we include that in our solutions. So whenever a client comes to us, we have processes that will say, okay, I wouldn't say whether you like it or not, we're going to make sure that your solution is accessible.
Okay.
So we have testing processes, we have hiring processes, we have knowledge transfer, education processes, right? Like we're making sure that accessibility is as early as possible instead of like just reacting at the end. The reason has been like multiple experiences, right? Like clients are asking more, which is I
Hmm.
love. If a client asks me that you need to comply with WCAG 2.1, WCAG 2.2, love it, bring it in. They know what they're talking. Let's do it.
Right.
We have other clients like, you know what, accessibility is important. What can you do? So we bring solutions. Others that simply they don't even mention it. So we're trying to provide to them the knowledge of like, hey,
Okay.
include this is your benefit. You need to do it. So it's been
And do you
fantastic. I
get,
think it
yeah,
has been,
yeah.
yeah. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that's great. So you're even, for even clients that don't ask about it, you are actually advocating that they, built their site as, in an accessible way. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's more of an education process, right? Like you wanna introduce a culture. So 700,000 people in the world. So every time I work in a project, it's almost a guarantee that I'm not going to be working with the same team. So what I love about it is that I educate teams and then you see them spreading that knowledge. So not only that knowledge to other teams, but also to our clients, because we might
Right.
work with like large corporation will have the same problem. You work with one unit of that corporation. So
Right.
maybe the unit of, I don't know, CXP, like the experiences, they're great. But you turn around and you look at the digital documentation team, they're not great. So
Right.
having multiple teams understanding what accessibility is fairly it's really good. It's a really good process to have.
Okay. And do you, um, are they certain types of tools that you use, I mean, in your web
Mhm.
team that you would recommend other development teams use? Any favorite tools, plugins, things like that?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So tools, like the first one that we always train people to work on is your keyboard. Like you don't need anything new. If you can
Right.
use your keyboard, you should be able to operate the website. It's fairly on look for or thought about. It's too complicated. Accessibility is too complex. We have to do so like slow down, start with the simple tools that you have at hand. So start with your
Right.
keyboard, tab. tap through your website? Can you
Right.
click buttons? Does things happen? Like, are you an experienced user with a keyboard? So learn that. That's on the keyboard support, because keyboard support helps a lot of audiences, right? Like you have physical mobilities, that's keyboard support.
Right.
You have screen reader users need keyboard support. You have certain other experienced users, like not disability related, like power users. They might navigate the website with a keyboard faster than you could with like mouse. That's one. The other one that we use for is on the semi-automated testing, even though it doesn't cover 100%. We always recommend using Axe from DQ.
Next. Right.
It's Axe Core, regardless of whether like the plugin in your browser or the core or whatever, just use that one. That's the best one that we have seen in the market. And then on top of that, if you want to go with another tool, Microsoft Insights for Web, they have a great plugin that has like kind of like it automatically tests your website. It gives you where the issues are, some solutions, and it also has something that we like, which is the guided test. If you're new into accessibility, it tells you like a 20-step process, what you should check in every website. So if you're
Okay.
new, you start learning with it. Like, oh, cool, this is the guided test. So test with keyword, test with this, check for images. So it's fairly cool for those who are learning. Um, those are the
Yeah,
two
those are
tools.
okay.
Yeah, and then I mean, you need to learn screen readers eventually, which it needs to happen once you get into this field. So you need to learn about NVDA, JAWS. If you want to go beyond, learn about speech control software. Like
Okay.
Siri and Alexa are voice commands
Mhm.
tools, but there are certain tools that are specifically for Windows and Mac, Dragon being one of them. So you will interact the website with that, and it's quite different. So it's good to know how it works.
Okay.
Keep it
Yeah, I
simple.
like. Yeah, I know.
Simple.
I think I
Um,
really like the keyboard
uh,
suggestion because
uh,
that is very accessible, and and you don't
mhm.
even need to download anything. Everyone,
Uh,
I mean, a lot of people, most developers have a keyboard,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and it's easy for them. It's easy to understand. Yeah, just tabbing through, and a lot of developers use are very heavy keyboard users, right?
yeah,
A lot of them love shortcuts. They are already
yeah,
very, very heavy keyboard users.
yeah,
uh, and cool. I want to ask you something. Yeah, just switching gears a little bit.
yeah,
I read in your profile you used to be a swimmer and a water polo player. Is that right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I did swimming since age 5 until
Okay.
age 20.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was like a to Olympic path, and then it was a decision whether you want to go to university or you want to
Yeah.
continue swimming so that you can go to the Olympics.
Right. Yeah.
And back when I was a swimmer, there was no money behind swimming.
Yeah.
It
There
was
still
it
isn't
was
any.
so career, forget about that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's also
Okay.
a long career, right? It was like 15 years of swimming. It's really
Right.
taxing at that level. It was like high level.
Right. What
In
event?
uni
What was your event? What was your event?
uh 400 individual medley
Oh, you're an IMer. Wow. Okay.
and the 1500 freestyle too. So like
Okay. So
long
you're a
distance
distance.
events.
Okay, you're a
Yeah.
distance. Yeah, distance swimmer.
Uh,
Okay. Wow. Did you
yeah.
watch the Olympics this year? Did you watch Leon Marchand? No. Did
Every
you?
year. No, every year we
Yeah.
have to. It's like in my
Yeah.
house is mandatory. Winter Olympics,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
Summer Olympics. Like
Yeah.
stop the world. We're watching
Okay.
Olympics.
Yeah. So did you see you saw the Leon Marchand races where he just like
Oh, yeah.
oh he was amazing this
Dominated.
year.
So good. So good.
Destroyed the
Yeah.
yeah good race the double the
Yeah.
200 breast 200 fly
Yep.
double that was amazing. Yeah,
It's
I'm a
so
swimmer
nice.
too. That's why I'm asking.
Oh,
I'm a sprint.
nice.
I do mainly I sprint. I'm a backstroker, but yeah,
Okay.
sprints. I
Oh,
don't.
yeah.
I've swum the 400 IM once in my life, and it was terrible. I'm like,
Never
never
again.
again, never again.
I did to that I did only once in my life 200 butterfly. Like once I'm like nope. No, I don't want to do this ever again. It's too
Wow.
hard. Like
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
no, no, thank you.
But not as hot as 400 IM. I've done 200 fly, and I think it was easier than
Yeah.
400 IM. 400 IM was
I
way
don't
harder.
know. I don't know. I think it is. I mean, to me, I learned butterfly really late.
Okay.
And I was like not taught properly. Just like go do 100 butterfly. Like I don't even know how to do. Like I don't know how to butterfly. So I might not have the right technique.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Do you still swim or like do you still kind of
Not at the
no?
level that I used to. So I did swimming, water polo, triathlon.
Okay. Oh,
So
wow.
all of them
Okay.
involve swimming. I mean, of course, you're a good swimmer, so jumping to water polo was an easy jump, and then
Yeah.
triathlon also an easy jump because it involves
Yeah.
swimming. But I don't swim the way I used to because of the burnout. I was like, yeah, I mean, I can swim, but it's not like, yeah, not to
Okay.
the
Okay. Yeah.
extent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very cool. I swim for a no I swim in a master's swim club. It's called North
Uh,
Toronto Swim Club. So it's I don't know where in Toronto you're
yeah.
located, but they're in the
Those guys
Young and
are
yeah.
Yoga and Eglinton. Yeah, I know that
Yeah, Young
place.
and
Yeah.
Eglinton area. Yeah, it's or
Hmm.
Avenue and Eglinton, more or less there.
Yeah.
It's a good
Yeah.
program. Yeah, there's some
Yeah.
pretty interesting people there. So you
Yeah.
should drop by if
Yeah.
you're nearby. Drop
The
by.
social aspect of swimming is good.
Yeah,
Swimming with a club is always
yeah,
good. Like,
yeah,
going through pain with all the people that are around you, it's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. I mean, it's not that serious. So I used to be an age group
Yeah.
swimmer, but I didn't. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't do it for that long. Like 15, I
Yeah.
think 15 years old was like my last serious,
Mm.
and
Mm.
then nothing after that.
Yeah.
And then I didn't swim for like 25 years. So
Yeah.
then I got back
Yeah.
recently. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
and
how
it's
it
been great.
happens.
Yeah. Yeah. So we only train like twice a week, maybe three times a week.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I like going to competitions.
Yeah.
I guess I'm competitive, so I just like competing, the adrenaline, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's all low stakes, right? Like I don't really care you
Yeah.
win or not. Who
Yeah. Yeah.
cares?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah. It's about
it's
being there.
it's about being there, and then you're just trying to improve a small thing. Like now, I try
Yeah.
to improve a little bit of something,
Yeah. 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 Of course. Yeah.
and that's it. That's all it is, right there. So,
That's awesome.
anyways, yeah, we should catch up on swimming one day. It's nice to talk to
Yeah.
a fellow swimmer.
Super.
Uh, uh, let's see. I had some questions. I noticed you also have a gaming chair. So, are you a gamer? Do you game? Like,
I
what kind of
do.
games you play?
I do. I have both consoles, so Xbox and PlayStation, and I also got recently into the retro arc consoles, the little consoles that have like the all
Oh,
ENS, like that, like pretty cool.
okay. Yeah,
So
right.
anyway, I like all games because of the like what they used to do, the simplicity of them, but they were hard. On today's world, I play mostly like rogue like games or puzzle games, or what's the one latest that I've been playing? Action games too. I like action
Okay.
games. So I'm yeah, I'm a big whatever gives me good experiences is awesome to
Okay.
see. Yeah.
Okay. Do you follow like the accessibility in gaming sort of a world? Like how, yeah,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not a
Yeah.
gamer, so yeah, not that familiar with all the stuff that happens there.
I actually take a lot of inspiration from that area of the world, from gaming, because they do a lot of cool things there that you can translate quickly to the web. So like they have a debate on whether accessibility should be a menu or should it be embedded in your solution, right? So depending on the game that you're working on, do you need it to be in the solution or do you need it to be a menu? So they're like depending on which company you're working for. For example, those games, Jewel, you might have it in your phone. It's a typical jewels fall from the top to the
Yeah,
bottom.
yeah.
They have different shapes and different colors. The shapes were created in that way so that you have someone that is colorblind can operate with that. So
Right,
that's
right,
accessibility embedded on it, right? So you see a diamond, you see a circle, you see a
right.
square, so you can recognize them if you're colorblind. So it's just like, I'm not going to give you an option. Just we do multiple options, and with this, it's embedded in your solution. And I work and I've seen experiences of games developed specifically for certain audiences. Like there was one that was being developed by four blind users. It was fantastic. It was just an experience. Actually, you play the game, it's the Bolt, I think it's called. There's no visual in the game. It's just audio. It's
Okay,
super cool experience. So there's no visual, it's black screen and they just audio, but it's like 3D audio. So if you can hear 3D audio, it's a game that you can play. If not, screw it. But
okay.
basically you can feel the people in front of you, behind you, around
Oh,
you.
okay.
So depending on that, you do certain interactions like walk to the right, walk to the left, or and then you hear someone coming to you. And then imagine having an action game, fighting with a sword and a hell and a hell we call that a shield
Chill. Yeah.
with something that you cannot see. So pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Okay. Sounds all right, cool, man. And so yeah, I'm gonna before we wrap up, is there something I should have asked you that I didn't?
No, I think it's good.
No,
Good, good,
yeah,
good.
yeah,
No, it's
yeah.
all good. No, well, I mean, I will say for advertisement, if you're looking for me, go to LinkedIn because that's where I'm more
Okay.
active. I'm not active in Twitter or any other social mastodon. Like, no, like just look for me in LinkedIn. That's where I post or try to weekly quick quiz in LinkedIn to learn about accessibility. So it's
And then
open.
you also have a website. Is that
Yeah.
is are you still active?
A11,
Yeah, and tips like A11 tips. Are you still active on that website?
not too much as I wish, but
Okay. Okay.
I always have a goal to get it better. So this
Okay.
year it wasn't in my goal, but next year
Yeah.
I have already some stuff that I want to put in there.
Okay, very, very cool. Yeah, so go find Hector on LinkedIn, and then
Yeah.
hopefully, next year you'll be more, and on his website too,
Yeah.
LIA11Y tips.
Yeah.
Very cool. Thank you very much again, Hector. This has been a pleasure. Yeah,
Awesome.
great.